interested in promoting your brand, business, or talent right before each video that we do here on Hip Hop News Uncensored, email us right now at advertise@hiphopun.com. That's advertise@hiphopun.com. Get your brand, get your business, get your talent in front of millions of people right now.
Powerful. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. I was listening to a conversation you guys on Twitter last week. Jason Thornton, you know, real good brother, man, right there. Tony Closer and you guys were talking about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. Break that down for our audience, man. We've heard a lot of negative things over the last couple of years about the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. Could you kind of break that down about, what's going on with that?
There were so many red flags with the Tulsa Real Estate Fund from the beginning. And see, here's the funny thing. Many people think that, like Tony the Closer somehow like has me and JT on payroll covering Jay Morrison. I was talking about Jay Morrison and Tulsa Real Estate Fund a year before him and Tony even had that falling out. Because what I noticed Jay Morrison was doing, and I'm going to say his name, I know you guys might not like it, and Boyce Watkins, they were trying to co-opt the ADOS movement. You had Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore who were pushing Black people getting a political education and understanding the value of their vote and understanding that there's systemic problems that many of us have, right? Like just because I'm articulate and I have a business isn't going to fix the racial wealth gap, isn't going to fix my cousin who's coming home from doing 17 years. Like I can't sit him down in front of a computer and say, hey, go do this blockchain thing, because there's certain things that were done to him systemically that government has to fix, right? And it would be disingenuous of me to come here and say like, oh, Black people are only poor because they buy Jordans. Or we're only poor because we do group economics. But then when a pandemic comes, the government can pump trillions of dollars into white businesses. We don't get that money. And this ain't about, playing a race card. It's just understanding the fact that many families have wealth that they can pass down because of government subsidies, because of government handouts. And Boyce and Jay Morrison was pushing this idea that all we got to do is do group economics and we can fix everything, right? Well, group economics isn't going to fix the water in Flint, Michigan. Isn't going to fix the hookworm problem. Isn't going to fix your uncle that's coming home with PTSD that just got poked up, that's just been living in a 6x12 cell. That ain't going to fix that. But they were using the culture and using what was happening and using the reparations movement to sell the fund. And that's when I said, I got to get on this, because I could see what they were doing. And I could see that Jay Morrison did not know what he was talking about in regards to even running a fund. Because if a person's coming to you saying, hey, I want to manage your money, but they don't have any experience in that role, that's a problem. Because understand that you're competing when you step into the finance world, you are competing with the best and brightest minds in the world. And they have all of the regulation on their side. They have all of the capital on their side, financial and intellectual capital. And you have a man who's naming it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, piggybacking off of Black trauma, right? But then turn around and he's doing no business in Tulsa, right? Like think about this. He's naming it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, right? But not doing it. But he went down there, imagery, and he's selling it. So then when we finally sat down and started doing the numbers, we started looking at it and we realized nothing about this fund makes business sense just from a valuation, right? He's valuing it at a $50 million fund that has no assets. Then he's telling you that these are shares, but there's no public market to sell those shares, right? He's calling it an IPO, but what market are you going to sell those shares in? Then you look at the fee that he's charging, right? He's charging a fee that's higher than any other REIT or investment that you can invest in to get passive income. So wait, hold on. You have an inexperienced fund manager, no assets, overvaluing the fund, locking you in, and he's going after the most vulnerable type of people. Then now we come to find out not only that, but he filed bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy. So let me get this straight. A man's going to manage your money and can't manage his own money. That makes no sense. But see, this goes back now to algorithms. This goes back now to technology. You have platforms like the Shade Room, Ball Alert, where you can pay to get on those platforms to put your ads up there, right? So now they're not doing the due diligence and actually looking into, does this the business, forget even Jay Morrison, the man, Does the business make sense? Does the business model make sense? Because the business model is basically designed where whether Jay performs or not, he's getting paid. He's unpaid himself or the partners who he never disclosed until years later over $700,000 to lose money. Then we find out he has all of these sister companies because he said it's a conglomerate. All my businesses are, they're partners. We're working. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Then we find out he's doing his JMA rep. They're doing marketing. He's giving his other business entities loans. And this is not alleged information. This is in the actual SEC documentation. So I'm not just coming up here slandering and making things up. He said it out of his mouth that he's a serial entrepreneur. So the Shade Room's not going to do all of that. And this goes back to a problem and this is why a lot of people don't like me, because you have a podcast. If you bring a guest on your show and there's a lot of controversy surrounding this guest and you don't ask them the questions that need to be asked, the same thing that happens with Umar. Yeah. If you can't ask a person, hey, why did you file bankruptcy? What happened in this bankruptcy filing, right? Why is the fund structured this way? Tone Talks offered Jay to come on there and discuss the fund. The other platforms are not going to do that. And that becomes a problem. And see, our people, because we're not aware of technology and how, these hip hop blogs, because if you notice, all of the scammers and schemers of our community, they all pop up on certain types of platforms. Yeah. And it's a pattern over and over because they're going after low information people who don't really care. It can't be about group economics when you get my money, but then it's about self once you have it. Right. When you campaigning for the money, it's we got to, it's Marcus Garvey. It's all of this stuff. But then you get the money and it's like, I don't got to tell you what's going on. Oh, I got to do, listen, don't wash my pockets. Don't be a chatty patty. Like this is the ignorance that we deal with. So when I was looking at the fund from top to bottom, I was covering it because I knew that no other platform was going to do it. It's the same thing, like I said, with Umar with the school. A man can't come to you. There's no way in 24 hours a man can build the curriculum, deal with the contractors, deal with, the maintenance is happening on the building, the taxes is happening on the building, accounting for what's going on. It's not enough time in the day. I know this because I run a business. I run an academy and I have partners. I have people who run different aspects of the business. There has to be checks and balances. And then we find out Jay Morrison is the check and is the balance. There's a common theme with all of these brothers. And it's just so happened that him and Umar both got the name Jermaine, which is even funny, because the rhetoric is the same. The business practices are the same. And then now you come to find out, forget even the way the business is structured. As a business partner after partner after partner after partner is coming out saying he effed me over. He did bad business. And it amazes me how these people love Black people so much. It's all about their people. It's all about the culture. But every time they work with another Black man or Black woman, they have a problem. At a certain point, we got to look at things and just say, listen, I'm all for group economics. I'm all for liberation. I'm all for doing things for ourselves. But there has to be accountability. Because if I can't hold you accountable, then what the hell good is it me doing business with you? Because if you're going to do me just like the white man, then I might as well go to the white man's business because at least I'll get my dividend.
Pleasure is all ours, man. So like we were talking behind the scenes, man, we've been watching for a very long time, a couple years now. I know I can say, and I'm probably my cousin longer than that. I've been paying attention to your platform and your growth, and it's exceptional content. Not just saying that, you know what I mean? You got it to prove. So how did you get into YouTube? Let's start right there. How did you get into wanting to distribute the information that you distribute to the people?
Well, I've been involved in crypto since 2012, 2013. And one of the common themes that I kept running into is that when you go into rooms or you go into forums, there aren't a lot of people that look like you and I, right? Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do initially was create content that our people would be interested in, and then eventually start to funnel them into what is known as Web3 technology. Because, one thing about us, like we kind of have to have a hook to get involved into something. It's like technology is foreign to many of us, right? So I started seeing a lot of, quote unquote schemers and scammers in the community trying to get our people into real estate schemes and credit schemes and things like that. So I would cover that content and then steer people into legitimate business opportunities and investments. And then eventually the content started to go more towards just crypto. But I've always been involved in crypto. But I understand that sometimes you got to kind of put some sugar in the medicine to get our people to take it.
Absolutely.
Right. Now take us back a little bit further. Because obviously, you know, an exceptional gentleman, you know, very knowledgeable and everything you talk about, been watching for a long time. Take us kind of back to the beginning. Where'd you start your education at? And yeah, take us back there.
Well, most of my life I played basketball. You know, I was fortunate enough to be 6'7" and can dunk a basketball. So I went to Rice High School here in New York City, was ranked in the country, had a bunch of scholarship offers.
Yeah.
But like most young urban men growing up, didn't take school serious.
Right.
So I ended up having to go to LIU, having to sit out a year. And that year of having to sit out really got me more focused on school because like I couldn't play basketball. So for the first time, I actually was sitting down and really just focusing on education. And then I start realizing like, you know, my coach just signed a $4 million deal and my mom can barely turn on her lights. And that's when I really started understanding just the business aspect of sports and how we're really a commodity that's underpaid and undervalued. And then I got exposed to one of those pyramid scheme things. So, you know, you get three, that get three, that get three. But like I just had an exceptional ability to sell. And after my first year of sitting out, I started doing so well in that business that I said, forget basketball, because at that point I realized I wasn't going to the NBA. And many of the guys who actually came before me, they were coming back home and they were making like, you know, $5,000, $4,000 a month in another currency. So it wasn't all it was cracked up to be about going overseas. So it quickly snapped into me that I need to focus more on business, which is when I changed my whole major, got focused into financial engineering and technology, and then I ended up actually going to NYU after that and really just focusing on business, economics, and finance. And then I eventually led me into, you know, investing in gold and silver, looking into the stock market, and then stumbling across crypto because I was interested in gold investing.
Right. Now talk about crypto. You said about 2012, 2013. What made it so intriguing back then? And to the novice person, explain what crypto is. I don't think a lot of people even know what crypto really is.
Yeah. So I used to be in a lot of different forums and stuff like that. And at the time I was following a guy by the name of Ron Paul and Peter Schiff. And it was, you know, back in 2008, 2009, that's when the, you know, the whole financial collapse happened. And for my whole life, I never even heard of a recession. I didn't know what a recession was, what it could do. So I just dived knee deep into the information. And as I started going, I stumbled across these two individuals and they was always talking about investing in gold. Right. And then eventually I found out that there was a digital form of gold because see, one of the problems with gold is that it's physical. Right. So you're going to always need someone to actually hold it for you or take custody of it because you're not going to walk around with 100 gold bars, right? So that becomes one of the biggest problems with it being centralized because, and this goes back to the story with the goldsmith where basically you would put your gold with the goldsmith and he would give you a paper certificate. But then what they would start doing is issuing more paper certificates than actual gold to claim, which always happens when you give the government or a centralized entity the ability to control your currency. They always end up inflating and printing more than actually should be in circulation. Now, when we think about crypto, right, there's over 15,000 cryptocurrencies. Most of them are absolute, you know, I wouldn't say scams, but they're schemes, right? At the end of the day, Bitcoin is the original first successful cryptocurrency. There was many other iterations before Bitcoin, such as it was B Money, BitGold, DigiCash. And the whole purpose was trying to figure out a way to remove centralized entities being able to sit in the middle of you transacting with another person. Because what Satoshi was able to do was take existing technology and solve what is known as the double spending problem. Because what would happen is that, for example, like when I send money to, oh God, right? Bank of America is sitting in between that and saying how much money I have and okaying that transaction. But just like they can okay that transaction, they can reject that transaction even if I have the money in the account. They can confiscate it. They can tell me how much I can send and when I can send. So after the whole debacle of 2008, people started realizing that our financial system isn't stable and that these banks and central entities have way too much control over one of the most important things, which is our money. Because think about it. We trade our most precious resource, which is time, for money. So you have to make sure that your money is stable, because you're literally expending your most valuable commodity. So what Satoshi was able to do was solve the double spending problem in regards to having a decentralized ledger where you and I could transact, and it could be open, permissionless, borderless, and most importantly, censorship resistant. After that happened, people said, well, great, you was able to decentralize the ledger, but now we can start decentralizing a whole bunch of different other ledgers that hold different types of data. So now you have people trying to decentralize real estate and titles and bring that onto the blockchain. You have things like NFTs, where now you can actually own your own music. You can actually own, games and different pieces inside of games. So there's so much more to this idea of decentralization, but it all started with Bitcoin. And now you have a whole bunch of other cryptocurrencies that's an abstraction where they're trying to decentralize different industries.
Now, I want to say within the last year or so, right around the time, what was it, GameStop and AMC did whatever it did, and everybody went through the controversy with Robinhood, out popped all of these stock experts and crypto experts. Everyone knew everything about everything. But what it also did, it opened the floodgates to your normal person that hears about crypto and hears about stocks, but doesn't necessarily know what it is. It gave them a door to go through and see, oh, what is this? Let me get into this. Let me get into this phenomenon that is crypto, and that is the stock market. Talk about how that kind of changed the game, if any, and talk about how a lot of these experts kind of maybe hurt a lot of people investing in crypto, not understanding what crypto really is and what proper coins to invest in, and stocks, things like that.
Well, one key thing you just mentioned is GameStop. What happened with Robinhood, and this is one of the powers of decentralization versus centralization.
Right.
Robinhood is a centralized exchange, meaning that they have to give you permission to be able to come onto their platform and invest in stocks. And at any moment, they can change the rules or revoke that permission from you. They can censor you. So when I was just talking about Bitcoin being permissionless, borderless, and censorship resistant, because the individual investors, the small guy, actually started beating the hedge funds, what did Robinhood do? Middle of the night, change the game on you, change the rules, where you could no longer go and actually buy any more of the actual GameStop stock. You only could sell it because they were trying to stop the hedge funds, because the hedge funds were getting short squeezed. So they changed the rules literally in the middle of the night. That's one of the biggest problems with centralization. And see, one of the biggest problems with a lot of people is that they don't even know, like if you were raised in a prison, you would never even know you were in a prison. And so many of us, because we're so convenient with using technology, we don't see the need for decentralization. But these technology companies literally control what you see. So therefore, if all you're seeing is certain things on YouTube or certain videos are popping up, they're literally dictating the flow of information and what you can see and how you think and how you feel. So there's a huge problem with many of these centralized platforms, which is why we have decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, for example. Now, going back to the other part of your question, when we're talking about a lot of these stock gurus and these stock experts, anyone can look like an expert when you have the Federal Reserve pumping trillions of dollars into the financial economy. So literally you have these meme stocks and meme coins that's pumping. You have these NFT projects of literally a rock, like someone literally created a rock and sold that rock for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just a JPEG, right? Now, under that is real technology. But what ends up happening when you have any type of bubble mania is that it goes back to the dot-com bubble. You had, anything that had a .com after it was able to get funding and raise money. And that's exactly what we just had. We had a 13-year bull market in regards of the stock market, the real estate market, the credit market, the debt market. So everyone looks like a genius in a bull market. But what starts to happen now is, I was one of the first people coming out saying to you guys that once the Fed starts raising interest rates, and for those of you who do not know who's watching this later, interest rates determines the price of money. How much does it cost for you to borrow money? And if the Fed is raising interest rates to fight inflation, what's going to happen is that people who have been levering up, who have been, taking out credit and debt to go, speculate in the stock market, speculate in the real estate market, they're going to have to deleverage. So what's going to happen is assets across the board are going to go down initially because the Fed has to pretend that it can stop inflation. But we understand that based upon this fractional reserve lending, debt-based economy, debt is money. The only way the economy can grow is by getting people to go into debt. right? Because the debt actually creates artificial demand for the dollar. So the Fed's going to pretend like it's going to get stronger on inflation. It's going to raise interest rates. Everything's going to go down. But then guess what happens? They're going to come right back with the same play, cut interest rates, give out stimulus. And we've watched this pattern happen time and time again. And if you look at the dollar's purchasing power, you can start to see that we've lost over 90% of the purchasing power of the US dollar since the Fed was created. So where am I going with this? You have all of these stock gurus who are telling you, buy this coin, buy that coin. See, I know what I'm talking about. In reality, it's not that they know what they're talking about. It's just the market conditions are ripe for everything to go up. What you have to start understanding is that as we go into this new digital world, there are only going to be certain type of asset classes that will thrive, whereas other businesses will start to fail, which is why it's going to be important going forward that you're listening to people that actually know what they're talking about in regards to how to navigate this new digital world that we're moving into.
If you can, probably about maybe sometime last year, Facebook, I think they changed their name to Meta. Talk about this thing we're hearing now, this word called the Metaverse, and kind of make sense of that to the people who really don't know what that is and what's that's going to mean for regular people like us.
Yeah. So the term metaverse really isn't even new. And I love to always, talk about this stuff because people make it seem like, crypto and cryptography and all of this stuff is new technology. It really isn't new. It's just the way that Satoshi was able to blend it together and solve certain problems. Now, the term the metaverse comes from actually a book by Neil Stephenson, where he was talking about, this ongoing digital world. And there's even a movie called Ready Player One that I would encourage a lot of people to go and actually, watch it. Whereas now, because the world around you, the physical world around you is deteriorating in terms of, social unrest, climate change, global warming, whether you believe these things or not, the powers that be are telling you that there's food shortages, that there's too much debt, that there's disease running rampant in the world. So what they're doing is they're creating these digital worlds for you, right? The concept of a metaverse, right? And you have devices like the Oculus where you're going to have augmented reality blended with virtual reality, similar to the movie The Matrix. Now, this is why decentralization is important, because do you want to live in a centralized metaverse or participate in a centralized metaverse controlled by Facebook, where we know they're not going to have the best, the best intentions for you? Or do you want a decentralized metaverse where you actually can understand the rules that are open source? Now, when we talk about this metaverse, again, as I said before, it'd be similar to like the movie like The Matrix. And you have the World Economic Forum pushing this agenda of, the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, where everything's going to go digital. And we're already seeing this trend and this transition happen. Like, for example, you and I right now are conducting an interview digitally. Before, if you went back 30 years, I would have to fly in, come into the studio. So we already natively spend a significant amount of time in these digital worlds. Instagram's a digital world. YouTube's a digital world. All of these different places are digital worlds. Now, the difference is just going to be that these digital worlds are going to be more immersive, where you're actually going to feel like, you're in, the Maldives somewhere, or you're in California, and you're going to be able to be these different characters and avatars, sort of like the movie, even the movie Avatar, how they was able to jack into, the bodies, but physically they were somewhere else. So that's the concept of where the metaverse will eventually end up at, where physically you may be here, but you'll be able to tap into these digital worlds. So right now they look cartoony. They kind of look like a joke, but remember, go back and look at, the first cell phone and look how it was a big block. And now you have cell phones that's as small as this, and I can use it as my map and my GPS, and I can take pictures, and I can order my groceries all from the comfort of my phone. Technology gets better and better through our iterations. And as I said before, you have to start saying to yourself, do you want to live or participate in these digital worlds that are controlled by corporations? Or do you want to live in these digital worlds that are controlled by the people? Because it's going to happen, whether you agree with it or not, fundamentally, that's a different conversation. But if you see billions of dollars and you see a company like Facebook changing its name to Meta, you definitely need to start paying attention from an investment standpoint, and just also as a person. Whereas if you have kids, for example, your kids spend a lot of time in virtual worlds, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's games like Roblox, right? So now this term of the metaverse is actually going to allow you to be able to own. So when we start talking about NFTs, for example, like I spend a lot of money on games, right? So let's say in Fortnite, you have a gun, you have a character, but all of that money goes to a corporation. And you don't actually own those items or that avatar or the skins and the guns that you're buying. Well, with NFTs now, for the first time, because of cryptography and crypto, you actually can own that gun, own that avatar, and be able to trade it inside of the game. And there even is a new concept called play to earn gaming, where now you can actually play these games like Fortnite and actually earn real currency. And this is very important because as we lose more and more jobs to automation and technology, people are going to have to find other ways to make money. And there are different crypto games, NFT games that you can play and make money.
Now, obviously, crypto now isn't doing too well. Stock market isn't doing too well. A lot of them gurus sound really, really dumb for everything they was telling people with all this money being lost. But a lot of your experts and people who are really keen to what's going on will tell you this is expected. This was going to happen, and we knew this was going to happen. Can you talk about our current financial state with the inflation of gas and food and the baby formula shortage and now stock market, everything seemingly going down, but this kind of not being anything new, this kind of happening around this time throughout time?
Yeah. Well, again, there's something known as a boom and bust cycle. What ends up happening is that the Federal Reserve with monetary policy is going to determine how much money is in circulation at any given time. And because, again, we've been printing so much money, we have interest rates at near zero. I mean, literally, there's so much money. The Fed during the pandemic stepped in and started buying corporate bonds. They were doing quantitative easing. Like literally every program you can think of, they were throwing it at the market, which, like most people would know, that inflation, basically, when you have inflation, that's more supply and not enough demand. You have so much more currency in circulation and not enough goods to go around, right? Or the same amount of goods. So what's starting to happen now is the Fed has to pretend that it's going to fight inflation. But what we have to understand is that if you go back 30 years and you understand that once we went off the gold standard, we delinked, first we suspended the gold window in 71 and then 74 closed it. The dollar was doomed. All fiat currencies eventually go back to their original value, which is zero, because we took away the link to gold. And what we did instead was we allowed everyone else to peg their currency to the US dollar. So that made the dollar as good as gold because the dollar did used to be pegged to gold. But it gave us an unfair advantage because countries like Saudi Arabia or nation states like Saudi Arabia, what they decided to do was that they would only sell oil in US dollars. So all commodities around the world were priced in dollars, and this gave the US dollar an unfair advantage because we could export our inflation to everyone else because they need dollars in order to buy oil and other commodities.
Right.
So you have to actually hoard dollars, and this is what gives the dollar artificial demand. So then over time, the rest of the world started realizing that the United States has a monopoly. It's not fair. So people started looking for alternatives because here in the West, we have way too much debt. We have an aging demographic of people with the baby boomers. And if you actually look at the debt clock and you see that we have $30 trillion of national debt, and then you factor in another 170 trillion if you look at all of the unfunded liabilities, the rest of the world knows that there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to pay back all of this debt naturally. The only way we're going to be able to pay this back is through inflation. The problem is that most people don't experience inflation or feel it because it's only 3% every year. Like, you'll wake up one day, you'll be like, damn, as a kid, I could go to the store with 25 cents and I could buy everything in there. And then now you go there, a bag of chips is $1. But it happens slowly over time. But what's happening is that it's starting to compound because it's getting out of control because that 3% every single year, now you're getting larger and larger leaps where you're starting to feel it. So the Fed is coming out and saying, I'm going to try to stop inflation, although they're the ones causing the inflation because of their monetary policy and how things are set up. And for years, they were telling you it's transitory. Don't worry about it. We got everything under control. Don't worry about it. We got everything under control. And then they come out and say, oh, well, we didn't have everything under control. So where am I going with this? Right now, the Fed is going to keep raising interest rates and trying to fight inflation until something breaks in the economy. And 2008 was the housing market. In 2000, it was the dot-com bubble. In 2019, 2020, it was the repo market. And the same thing's going to happen now. We don't know what's going to break, but something's going to break. And then the Fed's going to have to reverse the course of action that they were taking, go back to cutting interest rates, go back to printing more money, go back to devaluing the dollar, which is why you have countries like China and Russia and Iran looking for alternatives to the US dollar system and the petrodollar system. So when you hear these stock gurus talking to you about the market and where we're going to go, The market will turn around once the Fed stops raising rates. And if you look at an actual chart, you can see that it's actually sloping downward in regards to before interest rates used to be 10%, then it used to be 8%, then it used to be 7%. Now we're down below 2%. And next we're eventually end up going to negative interest rates because that's just there's nowhere else to go. So you're going to actually have to pay the bank to store your money there.
Talk about the COVID, how COVID, pretty much turned the economy upside down. We've seen that, when it hit, people were starting to lose their jobs. A lot more jobs became remote. What do you ultimately see the ultimate fallout being of that whole thing? I mean, people not being able to pay their mortgages, deferring their mortgages, and losing their jobs. What do you see happening in the next 5 years from the COVID fallout?
That's a great question. I've been talking about this for a while. Many people believe that we are, experiencing a lot of job loss because of, sending jobs overseas or, illegal immigration. But in reality, the microchip is the reason why you're losing your job. And Andrew Yang was one of the only presidential candidates talking about this, where he was talking about automation. See, if you actually go to a factory and you look at a factory from the 80s versus a factory today, you don't see a lot of people actually working on the assembly line. Instead, there's a lot of machines and robots doing that. And you have to start saying to yourself, even if you go to Walgreens or CVS, I went to a CVS by my house the other day. Before there used to be 5 cashiers.
Yeah.
Now there's 1 cashier and 8 machines. And those machines, they don't get tired. They don't need a 401k, right? They don't need health insurance. They're automated. And as more and more automation begins to come online, and as technology and the hardware gets better and better, and remember, it's getting better and better and much more advanced at an alarming rate. You have to ask yourself, for example, what happens when Elon Musk perfects the self-driving car to the point where you don't even have to be behind the wheel? What happens to the taxi industry? What happens to people who operate buses when we have the self-driving bus, the self-flying plane, the self-operating train? These are going to be millions of jobs that are going to be lost with a lot of people. So now what happened with COVID is that just accelerated what was already happening with technology, because many businesses had to figure out a way to still operate, although they couldn't have their employees coming to work. So this is why you was able to see stocks like Zoom do really, really well. Stocks like Peloton do really, really well because, you couldn't go to the gym, but you could ride your bike. You couldn't go into the office, but you can conduct meetings virtually through Zoom. So what COVID really did was really, at the end of the day, it slowed down the movement of people, because that's one thing that the powers that be want to do. They want to be able to control when and where you move and the migration of people. And then number 2, it forced everything to be online. Now, remember, earlier we were talking about centralization versus decentralization.
Yeah.
If you are in a centralized system where government or governmental agencies or corporations can see, track, trace, and monitor everything that you're doing, that becomes extremely problematic, because at any time they can remove you out of that system. Going back to also talking about money and digital money. In the actual CARES Act legislation, that was the stimulus bill that was passed by the government.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to create a digital dollar known as a central bank digital currency, because, see, one of the problems is actually getting the stimulus money to you, because the only way that they could get the money to you is that they had to use your last bank account that you received your tax return to. So what they wanted to do, or what they want to do now, is give you a wallet, like a crypto wallet, but it's a government wallet where they control the actual keys and your access to it. Now that becomes extremely dangerous. As I said before, we're going into a much more digital world. If you allow the powers that be to control the money, control the flow of information, let's say you go to the wrong protest. Let's say you say the wrong thing online, like we see right now where they shadow ban you. Who's to say that they won't start creating systems where they can just remove you out the system, or they can penalize you and just fine you right out of your wallet, because everything is digital at that point? This is why decentralization is so important, because we're moving into, this digital landscape in this digital world where everything is becoming digital. Literally, even going to court now is conducted via Zoom. Like when you think about how much technology is coming into our lives, it's going to be important that we as people have control and understand how this technology is going to impact us, because, automation is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And, another thing that I always emphasize to many of the people who follow me or my students is that if you want to future proof yourself in regards to jobs too, you definitely need to be focusing on technology, because that's where all of the growth is going to happen. Look at some of the most successful companies today. What are they? Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc.
I want to ask you, do you believe technology is a gift and a curse? We look and have these blessings like this. We're able to have these conversations via digital, able to have platforms on YouTube where people can decide if they want to watch and dive into our content. Never before have we thought we could do that. But then you look at the flip side. You were making me think as you talk about the YouTube age and the Facebook age and the digital age, how they were kind of preconditioning us to be so we need these things. We need the Facebook. We need to be on our phone. We need this. And then they slide in this verse that we could sit in our homes forever. And now you look at machines taking over jobs, and it's kind of worrying me where we're going to be at when we're grandfathers and grandmothers and our kids are growing, our great grandkids are going. But then you look at the blessing behind it. So what's your opinion? Is technology nowadays a gift or a curse?
Absolutely. I would say it's definitely a gift and a curse, more of a curse, because one thing about a lot of people is that once you give them convenience, they don't really care at the expense of what. And see, this becomes, again, I'm one of the biggest believers of the movie The Matrix. That's one of my favorite movies, because there's so many parallels between the physical reality we live in, if you believe this is a physical reality, versus the digital world that people are living in The Matrix. And when we sit back and we understand, again, like I was saying before, with the convenience, how people, they don't care about whether or not the NSA is spying in and looking at, you're sending those nude pictures to your wife or your husband. Well, guess what? Somebody's actually looking at that. Like, your conversations are being recorded and stored somewhere. Your phone knows more about you than you know about yourself. All of this information is being stored somewhere. And then, as I was saying before, when we were talking about, YouTube and Instagram and these algorithms reward certain type of content and push certain type of information away. So now they're really controlling what you see, what you think, how you feel. Because think about it, if you go on your timeline and you're only seeing specific types of information, well, then how do you truly know if your thoughts and your feelings are not being influenced? Like, so when you hear these terms influencer, right? Who actually is controlling the influence and what you see and why you see it? And I test it out all the time on my page. If I put certain content up, that content gets pushed more by the algorithm versus, let's say, more important information. And then they start talking about things like as if what is real news, what isn't. So it becomes very, very important. And then we start thinking about movies like, The Terminator, where technology becomes self-aware. So now we're talking about artificial intelligence here, right? And you have companies like Elon Musk with the Neuralink, where he's actually trying to put chips inside of your brain, right? So all of these things, and then we start talking about transhumanism, merging man with machine. These are concepts that are not foreign or new. We have the Terminator, we have the Matrix, and it seems like we're going right down that, but like, it's like we're racing towards that path. So now you have to start now going into the conspiracy theory realm. Is it, is this prophecy, right? Or is someone following this agenda and pushing it on you? But one way or another, that's where we're going. And it goes back to the concept of decentralization. This is why it's important to understand the algorithms, to understand the code and know what the code is trying to do, so that you can understand how you're operating within that code. Because if you don't understand what the algorithm is designed to do, then it could be tricking you into doing things that may be actually against your own self-interest.
Powerful. You hear this this term digital real estate a lot. You've been hearing it a lot on the internet. I personally don't know what it is. It's a foreign concept to me. Can you break that down to our audience? What digital real estate is?
Yeah. So there's one aspect of digital real estate where we're talking about, like NFTs, for example, and being able to tokenize physical real estate and just making it easier to do commerce, right? Like right now, if you wanted to get a mortgage from a bank, that takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to get approved. Then to actually, facilitate the whole transfer of the land, that can be another week, right? Then actually trusting the government to store the records. So that's one aspect of digital real estate. Just basically being able to make, to digitize more of the business and the flow and make it much more easier and transparent to transact. Then you have the metaverse side, right? The actual side of, owning digital plots of land, which are also NFTs, and being able to make revenue off of it. So, for example, there's a metaverse called Decentralization, right? And each plot of land is an NFT. And for those of you who don't know, an NFT stands for a non-fungible token, right? Something that's actually unique to you. So for example, like there's only one Michael Jackson, right? There will never be another Michael Jackson. So anything that he creates in terms of music is unique to him. You're not going to be able to find another person who can actually do what he do on his level, right? So now when we start talking about, plots of land, like that plot of land is unique to only you and the wallet that you hold. Now, on that plot of land, you could build casinos. And every time someone comes into that digital casino and gambles, 30% of the revenue actually goes to you, the actual NFT holder holding that land. Also, when we talk about NFTs, I don't believe in a lot of the NFT art stuff. I know this is kind of like a sidebar, but it ties into what we're talking about. I don't believe in a lot of the NFT art stuff. Many of that stuff is just money laundering, just like physical artists, right? You have rich people who are trying to figure out ways to get their money in and out of certain countries. They put it into things like wine or things like art. But when we talk about NFT music, for years, artists have been robbed blind by middlemen, right? And the whole purpose of crypto is removing many of those middle entities. So Nas was one of the first people with Royal to do this, where he actually turned 2 of his songs into an NFT. So now me, the person who buys that actual NFT, I own unique content from Nas. But rather than the streaming royalty and the royalties and money just going to the record label, it actually goes to you, the NFT holder, and Nas, right? So that's going to be huge for the music industry in regards to having these smart contracts that live on a blockchain, that are open to everyone. So we don't have to guess what's in the artist contract. We'll know what's in the artist contract. That's going to be huge because we hear about artists getting robbed blind all the time. Now, going back to the real estate thing, like you were saying before, in the metaverse, you can actually own these plots of land, and any of the economic activity that happens on those digital land plots, you actually get to, own a percentage of that revenue that comes in. So going back to a game like Fortnite, because we're kind of older, so for us, we really don't understand the gaming world. But your children spend hours in those gaming worlds, and they spend billions of dollars on different items. So now, by owning those plots of land, any of the commerce that happens on those digital plots of land that you actually own, you'll be able to get that revenue directly into your wallet. So there's 2 aspects of it. There's tokenizing physical real estate and just making it easier to do commerce and transactions and removing a lot of the, the red tape. And then there's the metaverse side of it, where many of us are going to be going anyway.
How do you physically spend crypto? I know it's a lot of different people speculating on how, and you see different things in stadiums and ATM machines and things like that. But how do you actually, once you obtain Bitcoin, for example, how can you spend that?
You have a wallet. So there are multiple different ways of, spending your crypto. First, you have to find someone that's willing to accept crypto, right? That's number one. But you have a wallet, right? In your wallet, I always recommend that you have a self-hosted wallet. That means a wallet where you control the private keys, not a wallet like with Coinbase where they control the private keys. That's the problem too. Again, where people like convenience so much that they're willing to run to centralized companies like Coinbase and give them your crypto. Understand that at any moment, Coinbase can wake up and they can seize your crypto and there's nothing you can do about it. You should have a self-hosted wallet. That's number one. And what you simply can do is that most of these places have QR codes, and you just simply scan a QR code and you put in however much crypto they want, and you can send the crypto directly to them. There are also other companies like, again, I don't recommend this, but Coinbase, they offer a debit card option and feature where you can go and simply spend your crypto with a debit card. But their crypto is accepted, all over the world and so many different places. I was just reading the other day that Balenciaga is even accepting crypto payments. So, paying with crypto has become increasingly easier compared to, back in the day. Now, what I will say to people is, especially with your Bitcoin, Bitcoin is designed to be a store of value, right? So I would be very, very hesitant about, spending my Bitcoin, because what you don't want to do is spend your Bitcoin today and it's worth $1 million or $100,000 in the future. Like, for example, there's something known as Bitcoin Pizza Day, where a guy actually spent 10,000 Bitcoin years ago for pizza. Right. And that those Bitcoin now are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. But in
Oh,
regards to, where you can use your Bitcoin and how you can use your Bitcoin, as long as another person has a wallet, right, you can literally spend Bitcoin with them, and buy physical goods and services.
that's new
Even
information.
PayPal now accepts a Bitcoin as well too, and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that's new information. I never knew you can have your own like wallet. I always went to like Robinhood or like Coinbase or something like that. So
And,
that's
and
new
I
information.
want to build on that too, because a lot of
Right.
people don't know that, and that's one of the
Right.
biggest problems for a lot of people. Is the first thing they do is they go get a Coinbase account, right? Because that's what everyone talks about. Because most people only care about the fluctuations of price. Most people don't care about the technology, and that becomes one of the biggest problems here. Is that people don't understand that Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies are not stocks. Right, just because they go up and down in value, that's just a function of the marketplace. But at the end of the day, these are technologies and they're all designed to do different things. So when we're talking about, like, for example, I can download BitPay, which is a self-hosted wallet right here, and you can have BitPay. When I say self-hosted, that means that you control the private keys. So only you know those 6 words or 12 words or 24 words to actually back up that wallet. So let's say in the event that you had the wallet here on your phone, and for whatever reason, your phone is damaged. As long as you remember those 12 words, you could back up your wallet anywhere on another device, on your computer, wherever. So that's very key of having a self-hosted wallet. I always tell people to get something like this. This is known as a Nano Ledger X, a hardware wallet. Again, I control the private keys, so therefore I don't have to worry about Robinhood or one of these centralized entities telling me when and how I can transact.
Right. Now, as far as the blockchain, when you kind of compare it to like banks and stuff like Bank of America, and we talk about, them being able to stop transactions, you also have something in place where fraud can happen, and they do have checks and balances for that. What types of checks and balances is on the blockchain to prevent like different things like fraud and things from happening, and how to protect your money on the blockchain as well?
Well, because there's no centralized entity, there's no 1-800 number that you can contact and call and say, hey, I got hacked, right? So one thing about crypto, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and lie to you. Crypto is for responsible people, right? You have to be able to responsibly store your private keys and know what you're doing, because in the event that a person's able to hack you and get your crypto, is gone. There's nothing you can do to get it back. Absolutely not. Now, what can happen is that crypto could be blacklisted. So if a person tries to take it to a particular exchange and cash it out, Coinbase won't accept, crypto that's been involved in like criminal activity and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, listen, if you're not responsible with it and you get hacked or you lose those 12 words, then you can't back up your wallet, right? So it's important that you are, responsible. And I tell people all the time, crypto is not for everyone. It's just an alternative to the traditional system. If you are a person who you enjoy the convenience of a bank where they can protect you against fraud, where there's someone that you can contact, that's great. But then ask yourself, what is the bank doing with your money? Right? Like, what are you paying for that convenience? And see, a lot of people don't think about these things in regards to, the money laundering, the wars, all of these things that the banks fund against you, gentrification, how banks literally won't give you a loan to revitalize your community, but they're literally taking your money and giving it to developers who don't look like you to come and gentrify your neighborhood, right? So it's very important that you understand that, yes, you get a lot of convenience with banks. I will not ever dismiss that, but at the expense of what? And most of the time, it's not for your benefit. So there's definitely a learning curve for crypto. I would recommend that you get educated so that you can know how to properly store your crypto, how to properly back it up. But in the event that you don't know what you're doing and you get hacked or you send it to the wrong address, there's nothing you can do to recover it.
Do you eventually see the world going to a complete blockchain digital type of currency? And what kind of backlash, if so, do you see government or whatever the case may be giving en route to going completely digital?
I think that it's going to be a mixture of two. I believe that you're going to have decentralized current cryptocurrencies for certain countries, like you have El Salvador adopting Bitcoin, and then many Western powers who are part of the World Economic Forum in their agenda, they're going to adopt this idea of a central bank digital currency. What most people don't understand is most currencies digital already. For the past 10 years, if you look at PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, that's digital. When you go and buy things, so effectively what's happening is you're really just debiting and crediting a ledger. And see, this is why banks can do things like fractional reserve lending, where if you put $100 in the bank can literally take the whole 100 and lend it out and speculate on it with your money, because they know that you're not most likely going to come and actually get that $100 of physical cash. Right? Before it used to be 90-10. Now it's completely 100%. They can lend out 100% of your money, because they know that most likely all they're going to have to do with that money is debit their ledger and credit someone else's ledger, because you're going to pay your car insurance, you're going to pay your phone bill, you're going to pay your cable bill. All of those things are digital. So most 95% of the money in the world today is actually just digital money. And most banks, if you actually go and try to withdraw a large amount of money, they're going to give you hell to try to get the money, because in most cases, they don't have the cash on hand, because they know that most people don't come for cash. So we're already in this digital world. What's going to happen, though, is we're going to be in this digital world where, with the central bank digital currency, as I said, was already in the CARES Act legislation, where the government controls the actual wallet. So now they're not going to have to, wait 2 weeks to give you a stimulus. They're going to be able to airdrop, meaning drop that money right into your wallet, and they're going to be able to control where you can and can't spend that money, because you're only going to be able to spend that digital money with government sanctioned businesses, right? So if you happen to be a person that's not on the government's good list, you're not going to be able to transact and spend on that ledger. So this is why crypto is going to become extremely important. And I know for some of you watching this, you're saying, oh my God, man, this guy's extreme. Go and look at what happened with the Canadian truckers who were actually protesting. This is not 10 years ago. This was 2 months ago. They were protesting a lot of the restrictions that the government was putting on them because of COVID. And what happened? Because everything is digital and censored, the government and centralized, the government was able to go and take their car insurance away. They were able to go and confiscate their 401ks and their stock accounts and shut down their bank accounts and shut down their GoFundMes. So Joe Biden already put out that he wants to be able to trace and track any transaction over $600 that's happening. So these are not things that I'm saying that's, far-fetched stuff. These are things that are actually happening around the world right now. And this is why I was saying it's going to be a mixture of the centralized ledger, the centralized coin that the government controls, versus decentralized coins like a Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. So I believe that certain countries who want to rival the West, go against the West, they're going to adopt these decentralized protocols, right? And one of the beautiful things that people have to understand is that these are technologies. These are not stocks. These are protocols, meaning that no one person owns the actual Bitcoin ledger or owns the Bitcoin protocol. Bitcoin does not care if it's $1,000 or $20,000. The protocol will perform the way that it's designed to perform all throughout the world. These are global opportunities. And I have to stress that, because a lot of people get caught up in, China owns a lot of it or Russia owns a lot of it. Just because you own Bitcoin does not give you voting rights or control over the protocol. And the better question you should be saying to yourself is, why does China and Russia want to own Bitcoin? See, these are questions that you have to be a three-dimensional thinker, because one thing about Western media is they love to scare you and give you the boogeyman complex. Like, oh, see, those bad Russians and Chinese, they own Bitcoin. Why? Why is the rest of the world trying to get away from the dollar? And why is it that you hold dollars and every year you get poorer? These are questions that you got to ask yourself.
Powerful. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I was listening to a conversation you guys on Twitter last week. Jason Thornton, real good brother, man, right there. Tony Closer and you guys were talking about the Tulsa real estate fund. Break that down for our audience, man. We've heard a lot of negative things over the last couple of years about the Tulsa real estate fund. Could you kind of break that down about, what's going on with that?
There were so many red flags with the Tulsa real estate fund from the beginning. And see, here's the funny thing. Many people think that, like Tony the Closer somehow like has me and JT on payroll covering Jay Morrison. I was talking about Jay Morrison and Tulsa Real
Yeah.
Estate a year
Yeah.
before him and Tony even had that falling out. Because what I noticed Jay Morrison was doing, and I'm gonna say his name, I know you guys might not like it, and Boyce Watkins, they were trying to co-opt the ADOS movement. You had Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore who were pushing Black people getting a political education and understanding the value of their vote, and understanding that there's systemic problems that many of us have, right? Like, just because I'm articulate and I have a business isn't going to fix the racial wealth gap, isn't going to fix my cousin who's coming home from doing 17 years. Like, I can't sit him down in front of a computer and say, hey, go do this blockchain thing, because there's certain things that were done to him systemically that government has to fix, right? And it would be disingenuous of me to come here and say, like, oh, Black people are only poor because they buy Jordans. Or we're only poor because we do group economics. But then when a pandemic comes, the government can pump trillions of dollars into white businesses. We don't get that money. And this ain't about, playing a race card. It's just understanding the fact that many families have wealth that they can pass down because of government subsidies, because of government handouts. And Boyce and Jay Morrison was pushing this idea that all we got to do is do group economics and we can fix everything, right? Well, group economics isn't going to fix the water in Flint, Michigan. Isn't going to fix the hookworm problem. Isn't going to fix your uncle that's coming home with PTSD that just got poked up, that's just been living in a 6x12 cell. That ain't going to fix that. But they were using the culture and using what was happening and using the reparations movement to sell the fund. And that's when I said, I got to get on this, because I could see what they were doing. And I could see that Jay Morrison did not know what he was talking about in regards to even running a fund. Because if a person's coming to you saying, hey, I want to manage your money, but they don't have any experience in that role, that's a problem. Because understand that you're competing, when you step into the finance world, you are competing with the best and brightest minds in the world. And they have all of the regulation on their side. They have all of the capital on their side, financial and intellectual capital. And you have a man who's naming it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, piggybacking off of Black trauma, right? But then turn around and he's doing no business in Tulsa, right? Like, think about this. He's naming it the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, right? But not doing it. But he went down there, imagery, and he's selling it. So then when we finally sat down and started doing the numbers, we started looking at it and we realized nothing about this fund makes business sense, just from a valuation. Right? He's valuing it at a $50 million fund that has no assets. Then he's telling you that these are shares, but there's no public market to sell those shares, right? He's calling it an IPO, but what market are you going to sell those shares in? Then you look at the fee that he's charging, right? He's charging a fee that's higher than any other REIT or investment that you can invest in to get passive income. So wait, hold on. You have an inexperienced fund manager, no assets, overvaluing the fund, locking you in, and he's going after the most vulnerable type of people. Then now we come to find out he, not only that, but he filed bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy. So let me get this straight. A man's going to manage your money and can't manage his own money. Whew. That makes no sense. But see, this goes back now to algorithms. This goes back now to technology. You have platforms like the Shade Room, Ball Alert, where you can pay to get on those platforms to put your ads up there, right? So now they're not doing the due diligence and actually looking into, does this the business, forget even Jay Morrison, the man, does the business make sense? Does the business model make sense? Because the business model is basically designed where whether Jay performs or not, he's getting paid. He's unpaid himself or the partners who he never disclosed until years later, over $700,000 to lose money. Then we find out he has all of these sister companies because he said it's a conglomerate. All my businesses are, they're partners. We're working. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Then we find out he's doing his JMA rep. They're doing marketing. He's giving his other business entities loans. And this is not alleged information. This is in the actual SEC documentation. So I'm not just coming up here slandering and making things up. He said it out of his mouth that he's a serial entrepreneur. So the Shade Room's not going to do all of that. And this goes back to a problem and this is why a lot of people don't like me, because you have a podcast. If you bring a guest on your show and there's a lot of controversy surrounding this guest and you don't ask them the questions that need to be asked. The same thing that happens with Umar.
Yeah.
If you can't ask a person, hey, why did you file bankruptcy? What happened in this bankruptcy filing, right? Why is the fund structured this way? Tone Talks offered Jay to come on there and discuss the fund. The other platforms are not going to do that. And that becomes a problem. And see, our people, because we're not aware of technology and how, these hip hop blogs, because if you notice, all of the scammers and schemers of our community, they all pop up on certain types of platforms.
Yeah.
And it's a pattern over and over because they're going after low information people who don't really care. It can't be about group economics when you get my money, but then it's about self once you have it. Right? When you campaigning for the money, it's we got to, it's Marcus Garvey, it's all of this stuff. But then you get the money, and it's like, I don't got to tell you what's going on. I got to do, listen, don't wash my pockets. Don't be a chatty patty. Like, this is the ignorance that we deal with. So when I was looking at the fund from top to bottom, I was covering it because I knew that no other platform was going to do it. It's the same thing, like I said, with Umar with the school. A man can't come to you. There's no way in 24 hours a man can build the curriculum, deal with the contractors, deal with, the maintenance is happening on the building, the taxes is happening on the building, accounting for what's going on. It's not enough time in the day. I know this because I run a business. I run an academy, and I have partners. I have people who run different aspects of the business. There has to be checks and balances. And then we find out Jay Morrison is the check and is the balance. There's a common theme with all of these brothers. And it's just so happened that him and Umar both got the name Jermaine, which is even funny, because the rhetoric is the same. The business practices are the same. And then now you come to find out, forget even the way the business is structured. As a business partner after partner after partner after partner is coming out saying he effed me over. He did bad business. And it amazes me how these people love Black people so much. It's all about their people. It's all about the culture. But every time they work with another Black man or Black woman, they have a problem. At a certain point, we got to look at things and just say, listen, I'm all for group economics. I'm all for liberation. I'm all for doing things for ourselves. But there has to be accountability. Because if I can't hold you accountable, then what the hell good is it me doing business with you? Because if you're going to do me just like the white man, then I might as well go to the white man's business, because at least I'll get my dividend.
Yeah.
Whew.
Man, powerful, to say the least, man. And I think that's why you get a lot of the criticism that you get on social media, because a lot of us, unfortunately, run on a lot of emotion. When you got brothers like Umar, you got brothers like Jay Morrison, they feed on that and they know about it. They're not dumb. And unfortunately, sometimes the truth hurts way more than a lie does. But you got anything else, cuz?
No, I'm good. I'm good now. Yeah.
And we definitely appreciate your time, Eli. Platform, got a beautiful platform. What Happened to Common Sense on YouTube? You can check him out. Hey, brother, the floor is yours. Before we get up out of here, let the people know where they can find you. Let them know where they can follow you. If you have anything going on that they need to know about, the floor is yours, man. We appreciate your time.
In closing, I want to leave everyone with this, and I think this is very, very important. When I was in college back in 2008, I remember my teammate, he was playing with the iPod Touch at the time. And I said to myself, it's only a matter of time before they turn that into a phone. It's probably like 2008 going into 2009-ish. And sure enough, Steve Jobs came out on that stage and turned this into a phone. And now this phone has went on to revolutionize how we do business, how we communicate, how we see ourselves. It's taken away so many different businesses and closed down so many industries. Look what happened to Radio Shack. Look at many GPS makers. You don't need that anymore. Where am I going with this? You can't look at technology or like crypto for what it is today. You have to be able to see the obvious before it's obvious, meaning that you have to be able to see 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. Because see, this phone exists, apps like Instagram exists, TikTok exists, where Cardi B, in her own words, can go from a regular degular to a hip hop sensation by using a device like this to create comedy. It changes business models. It changes everything. That's exactly what crypto is going to do. And I would encourage many of you to get involved in the technology, not just the money-making aspect of it. Because if you understand the technology, you'll be able to print money. Understand that if you don't have the money to invest, you should have the time to learn about Web3, learn about programming, learn about marketing, learn about ad copy. These are all type of job opportunities based around crypto. Take your own skill set that you have here in the real world and figure out a way to transition it to the digital world. We were talking about the metaverse. Guess what? They have real estate brokers in the metaverse. They have designers in the metaverse. Right? Actually, like interior designers. These are opportunities. These are things that pay. If you don't believe me, go to cryptojobs.com. They pay $75,000, $100,000 a year. These are jobs that you can do remotely. Focus on the technology because that's where the opportunity is going to be, where you can build the businesses of the future, build the jobs of the future, or work the jobs of the future. Now, in regards to finding me on Instagram, I am Common Sense Eli, COMMONSENSEELI. It is important that you make sure you spell it correctly and you're looking at the correct profile because there are a lot of people who are impersonating me. I will never, ever reach out to you first. I'm not involved in any stock options groups. I don't involved in any crypto things. The only thing I have is My Tech Academy, which is an education platform. Again, all that information you can find on my Instagram page. On YouTube, I am What Happened to Common Sense. Make sure that you are taking the time out to know exactly that you're talking to the correct person because there are a lot of scams out here, and I want to make sure of that. But the key thing is focus on the technology. Look at the top companies in the world right now. They're all tech-based. And most companies that aren't tech-based, they use technology. Get involved in tech.
Definitely appreciate you one more time, man. What happened to Common Sense Eli on the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast? Nothing but respect for you, brother. Keep on doing your thing, man. And anytime you're welcome on the platform.
Yes, sir. Much
Thank you for
appreciated.
having me, guys.
Indeed.
All right, brother.